Good afternoon, I'm Jessica Robinson, and I hereby call this March 20th, 2025 meeting of the Stanton Planning Commission to order. We now turn to the first item on our agenda, approval of the February 20, 2025 meeting minutes. Any changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the February 2025 Planning Commission meeting as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the February 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wiegand.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson. Aye. Mr. Hutchinson. Aye. Mr. Kessinger. Aye. Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next is item 3A, consideration of a mass rezoning of existing non-conforming residential uses in areas zoned business and industrial and historic districts and the south side. Mr. Hartless, Planning Commissioner for the city, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a number of properties throughout the city that are zoned for business or industrial, but are actually used for residential purposes. We call these, in most cases, these exist prior to the zoning code, so we consider them to be existing or legally non-conforming to the code. There are some challenges associated with these properties because existing non-conforming uses cannot be expanded. So in many cases, these property owners are prohibited from building additions, alterations. In some cases, if the house is destroyed by more than 50% of its value, it cannot be rebuilt as a house. It has to be built to conform, and the use has to conform to the business or the industrial zoning. So in 2010, that update to the comprehensive plan, these properties were identified, and the future land use map was amended to support rezoning these properties to residential. So that process began in 2012 when we rezoned areas along West Beverly Street from Formrose Avenue out to the city limits. It continued in 2016 when we looked at areas along Churchville Avenue, Spring Hill Road, and Inglewood Drive. And it continued again in 2017 with areas along North Augusta Street, North Coulter Street, and Winchester Avenue. And then in 2024, we looked at the areas around Uniontown, and then that was a little bit different because in that instance, we created a brand new zoning district, and we rezoned 63 properties in Uniontown, largely from industrial, to a new traditional residential development district. At the request of the Planning Commission, staff has most recently been looking at areas in the city's historic districts, and along as well as the south side of town. And we also went back through the previous areas that we rezoned to see if we might have missed anything. So attached to this briefing is the list of addresses that staff has identified for potential rezoning, as well as a series of maps that show the current zoning of the property and the proposed rezoning. The next step in this process is for Planning Commission to conduct field trips to go visit each one of these properties and kind of take a look at them on the ground. Staff believes there are too many properties to view all at once. So it's likely that we'll need to divide this up into a series of field trips. We propose two options in which we can do that. The list could be divided into smaller groups, and we could add those to each regular monthly field trip. I think that would probably take 3 months to do that. Another option is for Planning Commission to hold weekly field trips during the month of April. We think 2 or 3 field trips, special field trips, should give us an opportunity to visit all of the sites. So tonight we're asking the Commission to consider these two options and let us know which option you prefer. Do you want to try to schedule these in April and knock them out in 1 month? so we can keep moving forward with the process, or do we want to stretch it out and take 2 or 3 months to do the field trips, which would push the process out probably until fall or maybe even winter time. Once the field trips are conducted, staff will incorporate Planning Commission's comments into a revised list, which we'll bring back to you probably in May. I don't think we can get it done in April. And once we have that revised list with your approval, we'll look at scheduling a public input meeting. We'll send out letters to all of the adjacent property owners, all of the subject property owners, and we'll invite them to a public meeting where we'll have wall size maps and lists of properties, and we can talk with them about the challenges associated with the current zoning and explain the process. Each property owner can opt out of the rezoning, or if they own property that's not been identified for rezoning, they could opt in if they choose to do that. We're going to go back after the meeting. We'll incorporate those comments into revisions to the list and the maps, and we'll come back to you with a finalized list and ask you to okay moving forward with a public hearing and hopefully with a recommendation to council. I think that whole process will take 4 to 8 months depending upon input and how many revisions are necessary. But tonight we've asked you to review these attachments and discuss options for how you want to conduct the field trips.
Thank you, Mr. Hartless. I guess as an initial suggestion would be doing 2 sort of longer special field trips on Wednesday, April 2nd and Wednesday, April 9th, starting at 4 o'clock each day, and going probably at least 2, maybe a little longer. And then if we have leftover properties, that would allow us to tack them on to the end, or if we want to see something again, at our Tuesday, April 15th regular field trip. Any thoughts on that? Or questions for Tim?
Good.
All right, well, let's do that. Wednesday, April 2nd at 4 o'clock and Wednesday, April 9th at 4 o'clock. And extending the April 15th regular field trip if we need to. That works?
That works great, provided that we're able to obtain a vehicle for Parks and Recs. We'll check on that tomorrow, make sure that we can get a van for those nights, and we'll send out probably an email, let everybody know.
Okay, perfect. Anything else on this one? All right. In that case, we will turn to item 3B, consideration of a final plat for Bell Creek, sections 3 and 4.
Madam Chair, before we get started, I need to recuse myself from items B and C.
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr.
Mr.
Hanson,
Hartless,
are you recusing yourself from the next 2 items or just this one?
B and C, he said.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you. Bell Creek is a planned residential development, which is located on the west side of Churchill Avenue, near the intersection with Route 262. As it was originally proposed, the subdivision contains 35 acres of land, which is all zoned R2 low-density residential, and a total of 128 proposed single-family dwellings. A special use permit for the planned residential development, the preliminary plat for the entire subdivision, were approved in October of 2004. In the fall of 2005, approval was given for Section 1, which included development of the first 27 lots. Then a final plat for Section 2 was approved in 2006, which contained an additional 25 lots. And presently, between those 2 sections, there have been 52 lots created. This proposed plat includes Section 3 and Section 4, which are the final sections of the development. Section 3 consists of 43 lots, and Section 4 consists of 31 lots, and it includes the extension of Bell Creek Drive and the construction of 2 new streets, Fieldcrest Lane and Meadow Ridge Way. An infrastructure construction plan has already been reviewed and approved by the city staff, but construction of the infrastructure has not yet been completed. Staff has conducted a review of the proposed plat and has determined that it is in general conformance with the approved master plan and the preliminary plat, as well as the zoning and subdivision ordinances. We did identify 2 issues that need to be resolved. A deed of easement will need to be recorded for the public water, public sanitary sewer, and public storm sewer easements. A dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded for the proposed public streets. The draft deed of easement and draft dedication of right-of-way need to each be reviewed by the city staff prior to final approval, prior to the final plat being placed on a council agenda. The deed of easement and dedication of right-of-way need to be recorded at the same time as the final plat. And then the second issue is that prior to the plat being placed on a council agenda, the infrastructure must be built and accepted by the city engineer, or a bond must be submitted in an amount sufficient to cover the cost of the construction. Staff is recommending approval of the final plat with those 2 conditions.
All right. This item is not a public hearing, but do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Hartless, or is there any discussion?
Just as a process question, is this going to be built or bonded?
It's going to be bonded. The applicant is currently working with the city engineer to determine what that bond amount is going to be.
That was my next question. Okay. What do you mean built or bonded? As a condition of approval of the plat?
So when city council approves the final plat, we cannot approve those lots until the public street has been built, because we don't want to have lots that don't have frontage on a finished street.
Right.
So the developer who's platting the lots has to either build all of the streets and put in all the water and sewer and all the infrastructure before the plat can be approved, or they submit a bond sufficient to cover the cost. That way, they record the plat, create the lots. If something happens and they don't follow through with the construction, the city can call in the bond and use that money to build the street.
Right. Thank you.
On the basis that it would serve interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Bell Creek, Sections 3 and 4, with the following conditions. 1, a deed of easement will need to be recorded for public water, public sanitary sewer, and public storm easements. A dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded for the proposed public streets. The draft deed of easement and draft dedication of right-of-way will need to be each reviewed and approved by the city prior to the final plat being placed on a city council agenda. The deed of easement and dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded at the same time as the approved final plat. 2, prior to the plat being placed on a city council agenda, infrastructure must be built and accepted by the city engineer, or a bond must be submitted in an amount sufficient to cover the cost of construction.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. The Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Bell Creek, Sections 3 and 4, with the stated conditions. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Kessinger. Aye. Mr. Hutchinson. Aye. Ms. Wiegand.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
No, and this will, I guess, won't go on the agenda until we straighten out the.
Yeah, as soon as we get those documents and we can review them, then we'll get it placed on our council agenda. But I don't know when that's going to be yet.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 3C, consideration of a final plat for Southview Sections 5 and 6. Again, Mr. Hartless will present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Old South Village and Southview is a planned residential development which is located off of Commerce Road and Green Hills Drive. As originally proposed, the subdivision consisted of a residential area zoned R4 high-density residential, which contained roughly 98 acres of land, and they proposed to divide it into 317 lots. And also there was a commercial area consisting of a little over 9 acres of land, which was divided into 3 commercial lots. Special use permit for the planned residential development and the preliminary plat for the entire subdivision were approved in January of 2006. In the fall of 2007, approval of the final plat was given for the first section of the development, which included the development of the first 30 lots. An amended preliminary plat and master plan were approved in 2013. The overall density was decreased from 3.9 acres to 3.9 units per acre to 2.8 units per acre, and open space was increased from 20% to 26% of the total area. A final plat for Section 2 was approved in 2014, Section 3 in 2019, and Section 4 in 2023. In 2024, the preliminary plat was revised, which changed the name of Section 4 and all future sections to Southview. Presently, between the 4 previously approved sections, 117 lots have been created. The proposed plat for Section 5 and 6 creates 66 new lots, 36 in Section 5 and 30 in Section 6. It also includes the extension of Stonewall Jackson Boulevard and Chamberlain Drive, as well as construction of a new street, which will be called Southview Drive. An infrastructure construction plan for these improvements has already been reviewed and approved by city staff, but construction of the infrastructure has not yet been completed. Staff has conducted a review of the proposed plat and has determined that it is in general conformance with the approved master plan and preliminary plat, as well as the zoning and subdivision codes. However, we did identify the same 2 issues, again, as we talked about previously with Bell Creek. The deed of easement will need to be recorded for the public water, public sanitary sewer, and public storm easements. Dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded for the proposed public streets. The draft deed of easement and draft dedication of right-of-way will need to each be reviewed and approved by city staff prior to the final plat being placed on a council agenda. The deed of easement and dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded at the same time as the final plat. Prior to the plat being placed on a city council agenda, infrastructure must be built and accepted by the city engineer, or a bond must be submitted in an amount sufficient to cover the cost of construction. We do anticipate that this will also be a bonded final plat, and the applicant is working with the city engineer now to determine what that bond amount should be. Staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of this final plat with these 2 conditions.
All right, thank you. Again, this item is not a public hearing. Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Hartless, or is there any discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I did want to ask real quick, where are the commercial lots?
They are behind Shenandoah Valley office. It's when you turn off of Green Hills Drive on the Stonewall Jackson Boulevard, those lots are on your right.
Going up the hill. Okay.
Is the pediatrician's office part of it?
It's not. That's on the other side of the street.
Okay.
I would make a motion. Okay. On the basis that it would serve the interest of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Southview Sections 5 and 6 with the following conditions. Number 1, a deed of easement will need to be recorded for the public water, public sanitary sewer, and public storm easements. A dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded for the proposed public streets. Draft deed of easement and draft dedication of right-of-way will need to each be reviewed and approved by the city prior to the final plat being placed on a city council agenda. The deed of easement and dedication of right-of-way will need to be recorded at the same time as the approved final plat. And number two, prior to the plat being placed on a city council agenda, infrastructure must be built and accepted by the city engineer, where a bond must be submitted in an amount sufficient to cover the cost of construction.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. The planning commission recommend approval of the final plat for Southview sections 5 and 6 with the stated conditions. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hutchinson. Aye. Ms. Wiegand.
Aye.
Mr. Ketziker.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, the final plat has been recommended for approval, and I presume, as with the former one, there isn't, we won't set that quite yet.
Yeah, we won't set that date quite yet.
So looking at the time, we are about 7 minutes before 5:30, which is the advertised time for the next two items on our agenda. So if we can recess, or if someone wants to make a motion to move on to items 4 through 7, we can do that. Going. That would be better.
I move that we move on to items 4, 5, 6, and 7 at this time.
Do I have a second? Second. Call the roll.
I think you can take a voice vote.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
And I would note that Mr. Hanson has joined us again. Got it. Well, as anticlimactic, it looks that there are no items for old business or other business. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Would you update us on any actions of city council?
Certainly. At its February 20th meeting, City Council approved a zoning text amendment to Title 18 zoning, which revises a couple of references that we have there for Title 13 environmental. And that was the only item that council had before them at that meeting, which came from the planning commission.
At this time, the next item would be matters from the public. So if there's anyone here that wanted to speak tonight on any item other than those that we've already discussed, or the items D and E concerning the zoning text amendment to allow special use permits and the special use permit request from Melissa Swan. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Yes, but we don't have any hands raised.
I think we have a taker. Please step right up. If you would, just state your name and address.
Charles Hildebrand, 11 Woodland Drive. That concerns the eye doctor becoming a florist.
Okay. Do you want to wait, that's going to be, there's going to be an actual public hearing on that item, if you
Okay.
can stick around for a couple minutes and we can.
Absolutely. No, I thought you moved everything up.
No, we skipped over that because we have it advertised for 5:30, so we can't start, since they're public hearings, we can't start them before 5:30.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I could speak for it.
Absolutely, we'll call you back up in just a couple minutes. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Plenty of seats.
You can move, you can try out different ones if you'd like.
We do have a raised hand.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So whoever is on Zoom, I will just let you know that our visual and audio equipment that we normally use is not working this evening. So we are hearing you through a laptop. So if you will please speak loudly for us, we would appreciate it.
Okay, I will do my best. Karen Magno, 303 Stonewall Jackson Boulevard in Old South Village. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time or if I'm able to ask a couple of more procedural questions with regard to the movement through the city of approval for covenants, conditions, and restrictions. I know there might be someone there. I don't know if, is it possible to ask this question? I'm just trying to figure out the,
So this,
go ahead.
this topic that we're on right now is just sort of, general
Mhm.
comments that you want to make about something that's going on in the city. Since it's not on the agenda, it's not something that we would typically answer questions. I'd refer you to, contact the city staff, the planning department, for specific questions. But if you have some general comments that you want to make, we would love to hear them.
Okay, well, this is in reference to the item C, but if it's not appropriate for me to ask any questions about that, then understood.
So yeah, so item C was not a public hearing. It's
Right, okay,
sort of a
gotcha.
different-
Okay,
That city staff would be the best, source of information for you.
okay, I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
No, we have no other hands.
Okay. So for the newcomers that just walked in, we have tabled items 3D and 3E, which require public hearings that involve the florist shop and the zoning tax amendment related to that. We just have to wait a couple more minutes until 5:30. We are currently hearing matters from the public, so if there's someone that wants to speak about something else that isn't on the agenda tonight, you're welcome to do that. If not, we will just hold on for about 2 minutes and then we will. All right. All right, then I'm just gonna call a brief couple-minute recess and we'll regroup here in a second for the public hearing. I'm gonna call this March 20th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Commission back to order. And we are on your agenda at item 3D. This item and the next item on the agenda tonight are both public hearings. After staff has given its report and the commission has an opportunity to ask questions of staff, I will then open the public hearing. We will first give the applicant the opportunity to make any comments about the request, and then we'll open up to the floor to comments from anyone else or anyone on Zoom. Anyone who wishing to speak should come to the podium, state your name and address, and then we ask the applicant to limit their comments to 10 minutes and all other speakers to 3 minutes. All right, first item is item 3D, public hearing and consideration of an amendment to chapter 18.50 P1 Professional District of Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code. Mr. Hartley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Melissa Swan has requested a zoning text amendment to allow floor shops as a use permitted on review in our P1 professional districts. The applicant recently purchased the property at 2010 North Augusta Street with the intention of relocating her business, Honeybees Florist. However, 2010 North Augusta Street is zoned professional, and florist shops are not permitted in the professional district. If SCC 18.50 is amended to allow florist shops as a use permitted on review, then a special use permit could be approved to allow Honeybees to operate at this location. Florist shops are permitted in business districts as a shop for the conduct of retail business. Staff is opposed to florist shops as a by right use in professional districts, but is willing to support florist shops as a use permitted on review. Not all professional districts are suitable for retail sales, but there are some areas that could be compatible with small retail, such as the area where the applicant wishes to relocate. A draft amendment of SCC 1850 P1 professional district is attached. Draft amendment creates section 18.50.030 uses permitted on review, and the new section will allow florist shops and other similar uses which conduct retail business that provide a majority of service and goods sold on an annual basis by means other than in-person sales. The amendment specifically permits florist shops, but it would also allow similar types of businesses to be considered. The city attorney has reviewed the amendment and has not noted any concerns. In your packet, we've included a map which shows all of the existing P1 professional zoning throughout the city. Staff believes that florist shops could be permitted in the P1 areas along North Augusta Street and North Coulter Street, but would be opposed to florist shops along North Lewis Street and around the areas along East Beverly and Calorama Streets. The special use permit process allows each request to be evaluated individually based upon the specific business type and the location where it is proposed. This allows flexibility for the business owners while also allowing the city to retain controls over those types of businesses and where they locate. Staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the zoning code amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Our applicant, Melissa Swan, is also here. I'm sure she plans on speaking during the public hearing and answering whatever questions you might have for her.
We had some discussion on our field trip about the wording of the draft ordinance here, where we talk about florist shops and other similar uses which conduct retail business that provide a majority of services and goods sold on an annual basis by means other than in-person sales. We had some question about the phrase "and other similar uses" because it was so relatively vague, and I was wondering if we wanted to take those 4 words out, or if everyone else is comfortable leaving those 4 in.
I would suggest maybe going even further and maybe at this time, just as we do in some other districts where you have a list of uses upon special use permit, limiting it at this time just to florist shops, and then maybe having staff as time permits sort of investigate this further, and just put a period after florist shops would be my inclination.
Yes, I could agree with that.
So, I mean, I certainly want to hear what the public wishes to say, but that's sort of my first. I have concerns, I guess, about how hard would be that for staff to enforce, especially. Any other questions before we?
I could even be okay, and then I'm not really hard pressed one way or the other, but if we wanted to do sort of a combination and say florist shops, period, and then the second line going other similar uses, that sort of allows us to create a list as we go also, sort of it would be more like, again, like we do with
Yeah.
these others where it's a list, and then kind of the last thing on the list would be, and other uses identified, you know, as compatible or something to that effect. But again, it's sort of the third option there if we wanted to go, whatever route we want to go with.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this whole exercise seems to be based on the rigid Euclidean theory that all uses should be segregated, and that why isn't a florist shop professional enough to be in the same place as a doctor's office? It just, I mean, I know we're not gonna change anything right now, but why do we want everything to be so sorted out? That's not the way cities were built, and it's not the way cities should go.
We kind of talked about it a little bit, and I think in the, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but in the P1 district specifically, the parking requirements are such that certain uses just, you don't want them, especially as a buffer situation between more intensive business uses and residential areas.
Yeah, so our professional districts are designed to be a buffer between business and residential. So it incorporates all of the residential zoning uses, and it adds business office, based on the idea that business offices are probably the least disruptive business use, just because they tend to occur Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday during daytime hours. They're the least disruptive to residential areas. Our professional districts also include special screening, service courts, and rear screening to soften the impact they have on the residential districts. And I think that's why originally the retail sales component was not included in the permitted uses of the P1. In fact, there weren't even any uses permitted by special use permit. We're creating that entire section with the zoning text amendment.
And just sort of the uses permitted kind of speak to an appointment style of business versus a walk-in style of business. I mean, it just happens that a lot of them are medically related.
Here's a thought. Like, keeping in mind the intent of the P1 district, instead of florist shops and other uses upon review, would it be helpful to say, have operating times, kind of in line with the intent of what the district is trying to accomplish, rather than spell out, this use plus others? I don't know.
I think you still run the risk of there being some kind of really intensive business use.
Yeah.
Even though it operates during the day, 8 to 5,
Yeah.
that could disrupt the residential area. I think we should stick to the idea of stating what kinds of uses.
All of which is based on the notion that uses should be segregated. Why shouldn't I be able to walk from my home to my office to my florist? And why should this lady have to wait for 3 months to execute her contract with Dr. What's-His-Face? I think they all belong together.
And, maybe I should have looked at some of the other zoning classifications. Are they all, mostly list-based? Do they have I don't recall it having this sort of other similar uses language.
I'd have to go back and look. I know that language exists in other districts. I don't wanna guess wrong, but I would say maybe in one of our business districts it has that under uses permitted underneath.
Well, if everyone's okay with it, open a public hearing, hear what the public has to say, and then we can incorporate that and have a final discussion. All right. With that, I will open the public hearing, and I'll invite the applicant to come up and make any comments that she would like to?
Everybody, my name is Melissa Swan, 1102 Donaghy Street, in Canton, Virginia, and the building is 2010 Northwest. The only input I really had, but you guys have actually thought of, I guess, be a little broader, that we aren't just annual, and I guess I didn't want to get hemmed up with that unnecessarily. We are annual, planned, and unforeseen events. Sometimes we often see customers all the time planning a wedding or bereavement situations where there's tribute. We do visit families often or say, so the word annual kind of scared me, that if we say we had more than someone come in more than once per year, we might be penalized somehow and lose our special use permit for that. So I just wanted to omit the annual part of it. And I guess it sounds like it's right. But I think maybe with other similar uses can be very broad and get complicated too. So I was just thinking florist shops and other similar uses which conduct retail business that provide a majority of services and goods sold by means other than in-person sales, basically omitting annual. But you know, I do have the professional P1 district regulations open on my phone. I have for probably 2 months. Just for what it's worth, being you were queried about what else should maybe be listed, and what did it say other special uses along with. Just an example, there's 13 different instances under professional uses. Number 7 is chiropractors, optometrists, and osteopaths. 8 is dental laboratories. 9 is offices of architects and engineers. And 10 is funeral homes. There is no extra or other special uses in addition to that, but that's my own.
Those are the by right uses. So yeah, that's okay. So those are what you can do without having to request a special use permit. So we're looking at saying that, you know, there are some uses like a florist shop that you can make a special request and they will, you know, analyze the property and the suggested use. So that's the difference between that section and what we're looking at inserting, if that makes sense.
It would be added as like an additional item.
Right, and so what I was asking staff about is there are other zoning classifications like residential or business that have by right uses, but they already have a list of special that you can ask for by special use permit. So I was referring to those. I'm sorry if no, that's okay. I'm sorry if I confused you. It's when you don't do this every month, it's a lot.
Not hard to confuse me with all of this, that's for sure. But the annual part was the only part I really had clarity on this. I thought that might pigeonhole us in trouble if we had someone who like does that one.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, guys, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this item? And thank you for waiting.
No problem. I didn't want to do anything else but come down here and say, approve this thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. From my backyard, or my back porch, I can see back into the parking lot behind the structure. I've been there for a long time, 20-some years.
Can I interrupt you and just get you to state your name and address again? I know you did it earlier, but we can have it on this area.
Charlie Hildebrand, 11 Woodland Drive. I think he's got the information right there.
Thank you.
Okay. I can see that parking lot, and in the past, there would be at least a dozen cars behind the building. On the front of the building, all the spots were occupied. There was a lot of traffic there. And when you come out off of Woodland, which looks like the interstate because it's got that big green beach, there's a lot of traffic. And it takes a while to get out of there sometimes. And anything that will reduce traffic, I like that. I also want to make sure that I don't want an empty building anywhere around me. And I don't think the city wants empty buildings because you lose revenue from that. And this is a business that I've been in there several times because I wanted to find out what was going on myself. And I never saw but one customer come in, and I think it was just a friend of theirs. Most of their business is done over the phone. They got 2 delivery vans. I think they only really use one except for Valentine's Day and Easter and so many guys. And it's just such a positive thing. There's going to be so much less traffic. It's going to be occupied, revenue for the city. It's all good. And I know I sent out an email to all my neighbors, and I'm pretty sure that some of them replied. Because they replied to me saying, I replied. Okay, I didn't need to know that, but as long as you did that. So I think there's been nothing but positive response to this. I don't know of any negative. And, I would know about any problems with it because I'm right there. They're in my backyard, basically. So I strongly recommend that we pass this thing because it'll be a business. It won't be an occupied building, which is never good. Nobody wants a vacant building or any residence in their neighborhood. So it's positive. Do you have any questions for me?
No, but we very much appreciate having your input, especially given your proximity to the location.
I mean, I'm not next door to it, but I'm 2 doors down from it, it's like right there.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you very much.
yeah, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Are we holding? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
We have no hands raised on Zoom.
With that, then, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The matter rests with the commission.
Madam Chair, as we were talking, I looked up the other zoning codes
Thank you.
under I-1, which I realize is a little different, 18.7 through 5.090 uses permitted on a review. The only thing listed there is other uses of the same general character as those listed as uses permitted in this district. It's kind of, so there's a little bit of ambiguity there, to be fair. And if you go to I-2, you need a second to get back over there. Permitted on review in I-2, there is a list of 5 things, which don't pertain to what we're talking about. And then number 6 is other uses of the same general character as those uses listed as uses permitted in this I-2 heavy industrial district, and those uses listed as uses permitted in the I-1 light industrial district. So there's some precedence for a little bit of ambiguity to allow for some latitude. I feel like I did not find any language like that in any of the B zoning districts though, so kind of had to go to I, and I didn't look at the R districts, to be fair. So
Thank you for doing that.
no worries. So
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess there's a part of me that sort of likes the thought process of sort of having going through this process and allowing for more than just one use, which I think we can get to pretty easily. But how do we get a little bit more bang for our buck, if you will? That's kind of why I'm sort of like leaning towards the little bit of ambiguity there. But again, I'm not going to fall on my sword over it either. I think we're, depending on how the direction we want to lean as a group, I'm comfortable with.
I understand where you're coming from, but in my years as a planner, I've seen too many things where, and other similar uses is not quite defined enough not to create problems. And I would point out that with this, if we have another something come forward, it's not a florist shop, but it's something else, and we see a use is permitted on review, we could do the same thing with that we do here, where we add something to the zoning ordinance, another use permitted on review, and at the same time approve the request for a special use permit that follows that. So it really wouldn't hold it up to have to add something. And I would feel more comfortable doing it that way, so.
I tend to agree, with the latter perspective of liking the list. But I also feel like, not to make more work for you, but I think this is something that, intrigued all of us, and I think this would be something to direct staff to research and look at uses that we think are compatible and put that in there to sort of alleviate that, future zoning tax amendments, because I think that would be, I think there are probably other uses out there. That would, so.
And if we just put a period after florist shops and took the rest out, that would also eliminate the issue about on an annual basis that the applicant was concerned about here.
So our discussion, have any thoughts, trigger any thoughts from staff?
I think for the purposes of what we're doing tonight, it would probably be best to just list florist shop and strike everything else. And then, staff will look at other potential uses that we could add to the list and bring that back to you as a separate item.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
And how would we?
Okay, she wish I was in the chair.
Okay. On the basis that the amendment would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that Planning Commission recommend approval of an amendment to Stanton City Code 18.50 P1 Professional District as listed in our handout, our staff report, where the list would read one florist shop, period, and deleting the rest of that language.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. It has been moved and seconded, the Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested zoning text amendment as presented in the amendment and not in the actual staff report. Will clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Kessinger.
Aye.
Ms. Wiegand.
Aye.
Mr. Hutchinson. Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. And will that appear on what city council meeting?
That, sorry, give me 1 second. That will be on the April 24th city council meeting.
Thank you.
It'll be at 7 o'clock in this room.
All right. And turning to the next item on our agenda, item 3E is a public hearing and consideration of a request by Melissa Swan for a special use permit to locate a florist shop at 2010 North Augusta Street. Mr. Hartland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Swan, owner of Honey Beach Florist, has requested this special use permit so that she can operate a florist shop at 2010 North Augusta Street. Property is located on North Augusta Street near the intersection with College Circle. Zoning is P1 Professional District. In the immediate area, there are a number of other professional and business offices, as well as Terry Court Shopping Center and a number of residential uses. Professional zoning is intended for residential uses as well as professional business offices. Currently, shops for the conduct of retail business is not permitted, not a permitted use either by right or on review. Ms. Swan acquired the property in January of 2025, unaware of the permissible uses of the P1 zoning district, and she is now requesting a special use permit. She has also submitted a request for a zoning text amendment to make it a use permit on review. If the zoning text amendment is approved, this use could be permitted with the special use permit. If the zoning text amendment is not approved, then this special use permit would become void because the requested use would not be permitted. Shown on the attached maps, those surrounding zoning is P1 professional to the north, south, and east, R2 low density residential to the southwest, and R1 low density residential to the west. Property is part of the North Augusta Street Entrance Corridor Overlay District, and if any exterior changes are made, those changes would need to be reviewed and approved through the ECO review process. This includes changes to the building facade, including windows, doors, as well as any exterior lighting and signs. The city's comprehensive plan future land use map designates the area as professional. That designation is characterized as service-oriented uses with consideration to the character of the area. These uses are found in residential areas along major thoroughfares and adjacent to the central business district. Although florist shop is a retail use, it could also be considered a service-oriented use. Given the 8 to 5, Monday through Saturday nature of the operation of the florist shop, staff believes that the requested special use permit is consistent with the intention of the comprehensive plan. So we are recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the special use permit with one condition, that alterations to the building must comply with the provisions of the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code and Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? In that case, I will call the public hearing, or open the public hearing. You are welcome to come speak again, or you can stand on your, your earlier comments.
Donaghy Street in regards to property 2010 North Augusta Street. This part just, I stated this maybe in the last meeting, but I just had more documentation together that I think there was concern about walk-in traffic and business and things of that nature. So I reviewed video footage from like October through March intermittently, not including holidays. Not part of the request. And the average number of customers coming into the place is about 10 people per day. And this number could be slightly less when we're not going to be in a strip mall, when someone else is waiting on pizza and they can check out, the window's pretty, and then they go get their pizza, so they're just not really a patron. So we do have, documentation to support that, so we have cameras. And then also I did a little bit more digging since the last meeting here. We've documented our annual sales, our annual credit card sales, and actually just our business in general. And 2/3 of our business is keyed in on our website. Like people call on the phone, we key in their credit cards, and that way it's not an in-person sale. Documentation to support that. About 2/3 is remote, not in shop.
Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate it.
And Dr. Stafford's reference to the building department here tonight, very timely. Maybe it's not his responsibility anymore for the building, to talk about how many people he saw a day. Just in relation to how many people we might see a day, so we won't cause any disturbances.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant before she sits down?
Thank you. Thank you. It's been very clear. Thank you for all the information you said. And I'm sorry. I'll leave one answer.
Thank you.
If you weren't here, we'd be talking to nobody, so it's actually.
Well, you gotta stand for something.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
No.
My name is John Stathos. I live at 606 Woodlawn Drive, Stanton, and I was the previous owner and doctor at 2002 North Augusta Street. And I can assure you, we saw more than 10 people a day. Particularly when my former partner, and I were together, which is many 60 to 70 to 80 patients a day. We had the office shop downstairs too, and they had 10 employees full time, so that clearly would be a lot less traffic by far. And one other thing, these are wonderful people, and I think they'll be great stewards of the property. I think the community's going to be glad by having that. I really don't have anything to say, other than if you want to ask questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Okay, we have no hands raised.
Okay. In that case, I will close the public hearing and the matter rests with the commission.
Madam Chair, if I could make a motion, please?
Please.
On the basis that it would serve the interest of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move the Planning Commission recommend approval of the special use permit at 2010 North Augusta Street with the following condition. Any alterations to the building must comply with the provisions of the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code and Title 18 zoning of the State and City Code.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. The Planning Commission recommend approval of the special use permit at 2010 North Augusta Street with the stated condition. The clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Hutchinson. Aye. Mr. Kessinger.
Aye.
Ms. Wiegand.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, the special use permit has been recommended and will be on, I assume, the April 24th.
Same meeting, then April 24th meeting at 7 p.m.
Thank you all very much and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so we have already addressed items 4, 5, 6, and 7. Not have anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Our next meeting is April. Oh, yes, thank you. Our next meeting is April 17th, 2025. Time to be determined.